Classical systems of initiation were based on a particular series of practices that would create an alchemical change in the student. So this required an understanding of what these particular stages were and when it was appropriate to move from one series of practices to the next so that the entire cycle could be completed. It's important to understand that these particular practices and the understanding of these complete cycles were often different in different traditions in the world. An example of stages of alchemical development in an initiation process would be some of the processes of internal alchemy that are done by the Chinese Taoist traditions, in which they would go through a process of opening up major channels of energy circulation in the body, such as the microcosmic orbit of energy running up the spine and down the front channel of the body and circulating, then opening out to the arms and legs, and then beginning to open the energy and alchemically mix the currents between the different organ systems in the body. This would then move up to even higher levels of the alchemy of water and fire in the body. So they would have a complete sequence to go through to move the person's consciousness and energy body up to a higher level. Similar types of structured sequences could be found in other traditions. One thing that's often not clearly understood regarding the practices given to students in different spiritual schools is that the practices that are given are meant to create particular movements of energy in the subtle bodies that will become stabilized structures within the overall energy anatomy of the student. Now, these stabilized structures of energy in a person's energy field are required to be able to create a permanent change in the person's consciousness and energy body. One aspect of this is to understand that every thought that we have, every feeling that we have, every action that we take has a particular vibrational quality to it and creates a particular movement of energy, an energy current in the subtle body. It will activate particular centers of energy in the subtle body while sedating or de-emphasizing other energy centers or channels. By doing the same practice on a regular structured basis, you then begin to activate and stabilize these structures of energy in the subtle body. Advanced spiritual teachers can then perceive in the subtle body of a student what these structures are and how far they have crystallized. They can then pick for the student what practices they need at that point to structure the subtle body to the next stage necessary to move to the fulfillment of the initiation process of that particular tradition. We can say that every spiritual tradition goes to the same source because there's only one place for spiritual work to go to, and that is back to the One, back to the unified source of all creation. So in that sense, all spiritual traditions go to the same place and come from the same source. But we need to also have a technical understanding that different traditions are not completely identical because they will structure the subtle bodies of their initiates in very different ways. So if you go through an initiation process step by step in a particular Greek Christian Hermetic school of spiritual healing, you will develop particular structures in the subtle bodies that make you a very good spiritual healer. You may actually be able to dissolve and rematerialize parts of a person's physical body with the skills that you have developed. If instead you study with a Rosicrucian teacher in Central Europe, you may instead focus on being able to move one's thoughts and intellectual thinking up to the level that it actually becomes clairvoyant. It becomes a new form of clairvoyance. Or if you train with a particular teacher in the East, you might get your subtle body structured in a completely different way. We can say that all spiritual traditions are a particular group of human initiates and spiritual beings that work together with a unified paradigm to create specific capacities within the initiates of that one tradition. And there is a certain level of specialization between different traditions as to how the subtle bodies are structured and the skills that are developed by the students in one tradition versus another.